Hi, everyone. This is Brian Moon, and I'm excited to be a part of Humans of Telecom.
Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to Humans of Telecom, the Unplugged podcast. This is your host, Anurag Aggarwal. As you all know, this is where we go beyond titles and job roles to uncover the real people behind telecom, their journeys, their mindset, and the experiences that shape who they are today. And today's guest might just have one of the most unconventional journeys into telecom leadership you'll ever hear. Born in Guam with deep personal roots connected to the Pacific, he describes his move to Honolulu to lead his current organization as a true full circle moment. A rare instance where geography, purpose, and career align in a deeply meaningful way. What makes his story even more fascinating is the path he took to get there. Before stepping into the world of digital infrastructure, he spent over 15 years helping shape up one of the world's most influential technology events, while also leading roles across many other diverse industries. I guess it is safe to say this is not your typical telecom journey. So let's unpack this journey together with all its unexpected turns, fresh perspectives, and the person behind it all. Please join me in welcoming Brian Moon, CEO of the Pacific Telecommunications Council, PTC. Brian, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this journey. We'd love to hear more about you. Which part of the world do you belong to? And from where are you joining this podcast today?
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, finally. I know you and I have going back and forth and tried to schedule this conversation for a long time, so thank you for your patience. And again, thank you for this opportunity. It's great to be here. Today, I'm calling in from the beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, right here in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Brian, I must say that I think it took a little bit of time. And I think our time zones, which are 15 and a half hours apart, I think that doesn't help either. But nevertheless, it's great that finally we've been able to make it through. And it's lovely to have you here on the show. And Hawaii, I think that is a distant dream for many of us, because for those who've not attended PTC, I think getting to go to Hawaii is only possible on a vacation mode. And again, as I said, not everybody gets that good fortune. So how does it firstly feel to be living in such an envious part of the world?
That's a great introductory question. So before we start, I just want to touch on, isn't it great that telecommunications or technology or digital connections, that's what makes these conversations possible, right? We're on the opposite ends of the world, but we can have this conversation, and that's what the beauty of our industry is about. So yes, again, I'm based here in Honolulu and calling in from Honolulu, and it is quite lovely here today. It's certainly, like anywhere, there are challenges and opportunities for being based, especially on an island. You quickly learned, and I know we'll get into this a little bit in our conversation about living and relocating to Hawaii. But it is different, but lots of opportunities as well. But it also quickly shows you that although the world is big, the world is also small. There's a saying here in Hawaii, especially, that it's a small island, right? It's you'll quickly learn that someone knows somebody, someone's related to somebody, and there's lots of opportunities for having immediate connections like that.
Absolutely. I think the world is definitely small, and I think the industry we're in, we're always striving to make it even smaller.
That's absolutely right. And digital connections makes that even more possible.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you. So, Brian, let's start by unwrapping your journey. I gave a brief introduction about it in the beginning, but you spent 15 years at the Consumer Technology Association, where you rose to becoming the VP of Sales and Business Development, and you were managing CES, the world's most influential technology event. And then you ran sales for the National Restaurant Association. And then PTC came calling. So this is not the most conventional path of somebody leading on to becoming the head of a global telecommunications council. So what was the conversation that actually made you say yes? And what did you think you were walking into?
Oh, wow. A lot to unpack there. So you're right. It's not the most conventional path to coming to Honolulu, Hawaii. I would say in terms of just where I was in my career about 4 years ago, prior to joining PTC, I think from a life perspective, I had the fortunate opportunity when I was much younger to visit Hawaii many times. And so just in terms of the location, Hawaii has always had a very special place in my heart. And so that was certainly added to the list when deciding to join PTC. I think in terms of the path to PTC and what made me say yes, I would say certainly it was the opportunity. As you had pointed out, I had led business development, membership development, event management, event coordination in several organizations prior to PTC. And so, of course, with all the activities that PTC is known to do throughout the year, the annual conference is still the one activity that the council is still known for the most. And so that side of the business I was very comfortable with. But I think the attractiveness was, certainly, again, the opportunity to lead a council as influential and as forward-thinking as PTC. And I also thought of it as, I still think of telecommunications, it is still the technology industry. It's a specific niche, I think, when we talk about digital infrastructure and telecom and all the other vertical sectors that go into it. And I think that was fairly similar to my last role with the Consumer Technology Association, where we're convening industry leaders. We're bringing them together to make very important business and industry decisions. And so the industry was still somewhat, I thought, very familiar to me. It's a lot of, again, focusing on the infrastructure side of it versus the end user, end use side. But I think, again, there were a lot of similarities with both. And then lastly, I would say in terms of what attracted me to PTC was the organization has been around for so long. We're soon approaching our 50th anniversary, believe it or not, which is an incredible milestone for any organization. And so the longevity, the people that have been involved with PTC throughout the years, all the different programs that we lead, in addition to the annual conference, I would say all of that combined made the opportunity very, very attractive and why I was interested in joining.
Interesting. I must say that I guess there is always this overlap in similarities between the various industries, and I think you very smartly touched upon that fact. But tell me a bit more about PTC and how you fit into it, because PTC was conceptualized in 1977 and it was established as a non-profit in 1980. And it has been a convening force in Pacific digital infrastructure for nearly 50 years now. And you came in as a CEO in 2022 following a global search. So what does a nearly 50-year-old organization need from its next leader? And what did you inherit that surprised you the most once you were actually inside?
Well, when I first accepted the role and was starting to prepare for the move to Hawaii, I will say that I thought it was going to be a lot easier stepping into the role in Honolulu. And what I mean by that is exactly like we just said. It's an organization that was at that point over 4 decades in existence. I thought in all of my research that PTC was very well established in the local community here in Hawaii. And so when I say that it was going to be easier, I thought stepping off of the plane, settling into the role, I would be welcomed with open arms, which I was, but I thought we would be more established in the local business community. And I think that was one of the first most surprising moments I had, is that although the organization had been around for so long, it was founded here, we're still headquartered in Honolulu, that the majority of the folks I met in the community didn't know what we were doing. And that was a surprise because like many island countries or island states, that the made in Hawaii story, specifically here, is extremely important for the local community. And I thought that's what PTC was, and that's what PTC is. And so I would say it was a surprise, it was a challenge, but it also continues to be a daily opportunity for me. As I continue to meet business leaders and local community leaders, it's an opportunity to show them and explain to them how and why PTC is important. Again, not only as a global technology organization, but also a contributor to the local community in activities like the annual conference, education that we do throughout the year, even here in the state of Hawaii. And so that was probably the biggest surprise. And I would also say, as I mentioned in the beginning in the introduction, that there's a different culture. There's a culture, of course, if you live on an island, especially in Hawaii, where there's a rich culture that's existed long before the Hawaii joined the United States. And so there is a period of learning and understanding that and respecting that, and understanding that there's a different way of making introductions, meeting new people, including the local business leaders, that there's a cultural education that is extremely important in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And since you're talking about education, so let me touch upon another anecdote which I came across about you. So as I understand that you went to a career day of the junior graders in Hawaii and you tried to explain digital infrastructure. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if I remember correctly, what was mentioned is that you asked a question that who knows what a submarine cable is? And you got completely blank stares. And then you asked who knows about YouTube, Roblox, and online gaming. And suddenly there were cheers in the room. Now, interestingly, this is the story of the entire industry's challenge, which is summarized in one classroom experience. So, how does PTC think about the pipeline of the next generation of people who will actually build and run this infrastructure?
Yeah, the experience at the career day for the elementary school students was great. It was certainly an entertaining experience, learning about all the questions that are going on in their minds, what they're curious about. It was funny at one point when I introduced myself as the CEO of PTC at the end when it was time for the questions. When I asked if there were any, one just asked, "So, as the CEO, you just must mean that everyone gets paid every day, right?" I said, "Yeah,
Right.
that's kind of one of the responsibilities." But yeah, in terms of the industry, it is exactly what you said, that there's lots of opportunities to explain what we do. And it's understanding the audience. And I did intentionally start with the question, who knows what a submarine cable is? Probably knowing that none of these elementary students would. However, it's the context. And what's extremely important is how it's beneficial to them. So certainly things like online gaming and YouTube and video and streaming are the easiest way to try to position our industry. But I think it's also a reminder that myself and all of the others in our industry need to continue to be ambassadors and need to be able to explain what we do is extremely important. Again, there's the entertainment value of it, but there's also the business aspect of it. There's the human aspect of it, how important we do. Like you and I talked about in the introduction, without our technology and our industry, things like this conversation couldn't happen, right? Folks couldn't, university students wouldn't be able to learn online. There are patients in the with medical needs that wouldn't be able to speak to their doctors or physicians. And so it's always an opportunity for all of us to continue to be ambassadors. And those are just, several small examples, but just continuing to talk about how important our industry is, how we're evolving, all the positives of it. Obviously, we're focusing a lot on AI right now and data center builds. And so just to continue to educate the community, outside of our own circles and our own peers, but to educate the community on all the great things that are happening and what all those opportunities are.
Absolutely. And I think the fact that you touched upon creating brand ambassadors, I think that's very important for us to realize that we're not just running day jobs, but we're actually acting as brand ambassadors for our industry and actually influencing the next generation who are going to be incumbent in our journey forward, as in the telecom journey forward.
Right.
So I think you're doing a great job on that front, Brian. And let's roll back a bit and talk a bit more about Brian now rather than talking so much about telecom or about PTC. Well, of course, I know that both are quite interlinked, Brian and PTC, they're synonymous. But let's talk a bit more about you now. So I did some research and I found that you hold a Bachelor of Science degree in Professional and Technical Communication with a concentration in marketing from the Rochester Institute of Technology. That is a degree which is built around making complex things understandable to people, which turns out to be exactly what leading a telecom industry association requires. Now, was that a lucky accident, or did you always know that translation and communication were where your instincts lived?
I think the easy answer is it was a lucky accident. I would group myself as part of a group that's probably, when going through university, not fully understanding or realizing what I wanted to do at the end of my 4-year journey there at university. However, I wanted to focus on areas that I thought would open up more doors and opportunities specifically for my interest. At that point, I thought a communications degree, specifically professionally and in the technical fields, would help me do that. And certainly having a concentration in marketing below that would help me just first and foremost hone that level of skill in terms of marketing, PR, content development, etc. And so I thought with those two areas of focus that it would just give me the best opportunity to expand my horizons in terms of different industries or different even occupations I wanted to look into shortly after graduating. So somewhat of a lucky accident, Although I always believe in the saying that, luck is really when opportunity meets preparation. And so I think I tried to just equip myself the best I could with an education that would give me those sorts of opportunities.
Absolutely. And you got it so right that at the right moment when luck knocks at your door, if you're prepared for it, then destiny happens.
That's right. That's right. I like that.
Awesome. And now, Brian, we come to a fun section of our conversation. So, two truths and a lie. Now, you've told us many interesting facets about you, Brian, but I'm still hoping that while the world knows you so well, but if there are three statements we can get about you, two of them have to be true, one of them has to be a lie, and I'll try and guess which one of them is which. So, do you have three such statements for us today?
Let me see. Okay. This can be fun, right?
Absolutely. That's the intent of it.
Okay. Let's see. I will say here. Okay. Here are the three. Number one, I have never been late to a meeting. Number two, I have visited 30 plus countries. And number three, I own more than 300 pairs of shoes.
All right. These are very interesting ones. So, let's see now. If I get it right, I've had 2, 3 conversations with you, which led to here, and you've always been immaculately on time. So I'm going to guess that the first one is possibly true. Visiting over 30 countries. Again, I feel that you're in that part of a world where a lot of your interactions have to happen beyond that region. And I'm guessing, given our
Mhm.
industry, there is a strong chance you visited over 30 countries. And your shoe story, I'd love for it to be true. So I'm going to take a chance and say that that's the lie, but I would love for that to be true as well. So I'm going to say that the first two statements are true and the third one is a lie. So how's it?
Okay, so the correct answers are, or let's say the truths are, I have visited more than enough countries, so that is true.
All right.
And believe it or not, I do own more than 300 pairs of shoes. which is a little bit I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit on your program, but we're having a fun conversation, and so I will admit that. But the lie is I have been late to meetings, and so for my just personality, it makes me very anxious when I am running late.
Uh-huh.
And so that one is one I continue to work on. But the lie was I have been late to meetings.
But let's touch a bit more upon the fetish for shoes. So what's the big deal? And do you actually have storage space to store 300 pairs of shoes?
Oh my goodness, this could be a whole nother episode when we're talking about lifestyles, I think. No, it's more of just something that I think it's a bad hobby, more so than not. I don't even consider myself a shoe collector. It's just certainly there's so many fun things you could do with shoes, and it just became this sort of, yeah, I guess it's a habit, or you can call it a hobby over the years. And I will say that my wife is a very, very good sport about this about this hobby.
Amazing. I guess you really stumped me out there because 300 pairs of shoes, yeah, it's quite uncommon to hear of. But well played, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, Brian. So moving on from here, so a little bit more about your personal life. So as we've discussed
Sure.
that you've come from the world of consumer technology, where products are actually very visible, tangible, and often very exciting to the public.
Mhm.
And now you've come into an industry where the most critical infrastructure is actually invisible. The cables under oceans,
Right.
signals which are going through spectrums, and data which is moving silently across continents. Now, how has that invisibility been for you? Has that ever frustrated you? Or do you find something quietly powerful about this infrastructure that the world depends on, but never really thinks about?
Well, it's very exciting for me personally. Again, as an ambassador of PTC and an ambassador of the industry, I think it should be exciting for all of us. And I would say I compare it to something I do in my own mind, where I call it the family and friends test. And what I mean by that is, if something that we do from an industry perspective reaches my family and friends and they ask about it, that means we're doing something right. So specific examples of that is when we talk about the sector of satellite technology, which is a part of our industry, or you talk about obviously AI is very popular right now as a topic of conversation, and it reaches my family and friends. That means that we're doing something right, and we're certainly making our industry more aware outside of our own circle, right? Of our industry colleagues and peers, et cetera. And so that is always exciting for me that they understand that. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier with speaking with the elementary school students, that once they understand a little bit about what a submarine cable is and how important it is, that then you can start to see their eyes open up. They get more curious about what's going on. And so that is always something I love to see on people's faces. I think on the flip side of that is it's also in a way frustrating because, as you know, in our industry right now, there's lots of news around the topic of data centers, right, all around the world. And if you really understand what data centers do and the importance of them, they're critical, not only to our industry, but they're critical to the world and daily activities that are happening. And, I think the opportunity for us is with some of this, I would say, unpopular news that is happening right now, specifically about data centers, is an opportunity for our industry to get ahead of that and to educate the public and educate business leaders and community leaders that our industry is doing a lot of good. And again, I think that's an opportunity for all of us to get ahead of that and educate everyone, again, which is an opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think getting our friends and family together into our entire sphere of influence as far as the telecom space goes, I think that's the first step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And often I've seen personally, I come from the messaging background. And while I've spent over a decade now in this industry, but still when I'm with my family or my friends, every time I get the same question that, listen, I really don't know what you do. You keep seeming to go to these fancy events, fancy places and stuff like that. But it's never really clear that what is this tangible thing that you're selling and what do you mean by selling SMS? So I think I can actually vibe with you out there that educating the larger public is, of course, the need of the hour. But I think one small step in the right direction is getting your friends and family to understand better of what exactly you're up to.
Exactly right.
All right. And now, Brian, before we wrap up this section and come to our signature question. So, what is the one thing you would want a young person, perhaps sitting in one of those Hawaii classrooms, to hear about why digital infrastructure might be the most important career of their generation?
I would say I point to two recent experiences I've had to your question. One is I participated in an alumni group presentation for my alma mater about to students who are close to graduating university. And just to talk about what opportunities there were, and there were several of us who went into different career paths, and we were all answering questions and talking about our own experiences. And so I think from a general perspective, if I was speaking with a young person outside of Hawaii first, is that every opportunity of meeting someone is an opportunity to expand your network. And that's one of the career advices I always give to young students and recent graduates is that, I want to give the benefit of doubt to this current generation that there seems to be a little bit of a reputation that they have, which is unfair to them. But I think just going back to the career advice is just always be open to meeting people, always be open to building your network, be careful with social media, and also just go out and meet and learn as much as you can. So that was one thing I would say from a more global perspective. The other experience I tie to is not only with students in Hawaii, but I also had a recent opportunity to speak with young women from the Pacific Islands. And that is always a heartwarming experience for me because, yes, we talked about the world is big, but the world is also small, is that we also don't realize, I think those of us who are fortunate to live in places like the United States where, technology is more advanced than those of the Pacific Island countries, but meeting young people, especially this experience of meeting young women who are eager to have the same type of opportunities that others do, like on the mainland. And that's where I truly believe and why I'm so passionate about our industry and the education side of it is that we should be, as this generation, building the bridge and the opportunities for the next generation to have those same opportunities that we had, or even more. And that's what's exciting about, again, the industry of digital infrastructure and everyone who's a part of it is that we have this opportunity to build the bridge, right? To level the playing field with technology to make sure that those opportunities are available to all, whether you are on the US mainland or whether you are in a small village in Fiji, that the young people in the next generation have the same opportunities. So that's what I would say. And I would say that's the same with Hawaii as well, is although it's part of the United States, technologically wise, a little bit behind in terms of infrastructure, but catching up very, very quickly. So again, it's an opportunity for all of us to make sure that the next generation have the same, if not more, opportunities than we did.
Absolutely. And I definitely think that technology is a big leveler for us all, and it's bringing us all onto the same page. And I think it's creating so many avenues and opportunities that whether you come
Right.
from a small part of the world or you come from a much larger country, I think we are all being able to get access to this world of information and knowledge around us. And I think our industry is playing a pivotal role in that. So totally agree with you on that.
Right.
All right. And now, Brian, we are down to our signature question. What does being human mean to you? What sort of a human being would you want the world to remember you as?
Wow. That's a very powerful last question. I would say, looking back at my career and just personal life, if I were to say that if someone wants to, if someone wants to remember me, that if that person were asked, I'd appreciate them just pausing, so there's silence, and then hopefully a memory of me brings a smile to their face. So no words even spoken. I think just a nice pause and a smile, hopefully a happy memory, will be how they would remember me.
Well, I think, Brian, the lovely PTC event, actually, at least from that, I know you, and I've heard about you from so many people who attended that event. So I think you're already living that path, and a lot of people have such fond things to say about you. So I think that smile on the face, I've personally seen that on some of my colleagues' faces. So I think you've already reached that point, and I think this job of being a brand ambassador and creating brand ambassadors through this venture called PTC, I think you're doing a fabulous job, and you will keep bringing smiles on many other faces around you, which you'll be interacting with in the days to come.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I sincerely appreciate this opportunity and conversation. Hopefully, it'll get our peers to continue to live the mission, and for all of us to continue to be ambassadors of our wonderful industry.
Amen to that. All right, Brian. So once again, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this show. It was so wonderful to hear your thoughts and to learn so much more about what PTC is doing, more about the global digital infrastructure stage that we are all on, and so much more about how the world is becoming even smaller as we speak. So thank you for your time. And while we are on absolutely opposite parts of the world, I do hope that at some point of time, we actually get to meet each other as well. So thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you again for this opportunity. It was a wonderful conversation. I had a great time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian. And as always, to our wonderful listeners here, we hope this episode gave you a good glimpse of the human side of Brian Moon, an unconventional telecom leader with a journey that defies the norm. Born in Guam with deep Pacific roots, his move to Honolulu wasn't just a role. It was a true full circle moment. Spending over 15 years shaping one of the world's most influential tech events before stepping into this space. From a small island to the global stage, he's now building brand ambassadors for the telecom world. And finally, a fun twist, a man who proudly owns over 300 pairs of shoes. It's safe to say, this is not your typical telecom guy. That for us is Brian Moon. So, if you enjoyed today's episode, do stay tuned in, because we shall soon be releasing yet another episode and another compelling story from the telecom space. And do follow the podcast on your preferred streaming channel. On behalf of Humans of Telecom, this is your host Anurag Aggarwal signing off for now. Take care.